Something happened during a lockdown I can't explain. For starters, I lived in a small humble town in northern Maine growing up. We had a paper mill, one tiny emergency care hospital if you can even call it that, and a school for 6th grade all the way through high school. The town was on the edge of a massive swamp and a never-ending forest. The town was full of rundown old buildings, left to rot after everyone moved out, due to the mill laying off workers with rumors that they were about to be sold to a larger company, but they never did in the end. This story took place when I was 15, at the old school which was basically crumbling at our feet. I was in the middle of a math class, my last class of the day. I was incredibly tired, and just wanted to go home, not focusing on the day's lesson. Suddenly, the ancient crackly old speakers came to life, interrupting the teacher's monotonous drone. I heard the familiar voice of the principal on the speaker. "Everyone, the school is now under lockdown. Students, please move yourself to the closest room if it is safe to do so. Teachers, please close and lock your doors." My teacher hurried over and closed and locked the thick heavy oak door, which looked almost unbreakable. Then she looked nervously out the classroom's window, located right next to the door, looking out into the hallway. After this, she silently motioned us to move behind her desk, across the classroom from the door and hallway window. Everyone had a look of silent confusion and fear on their faces, and one kid looked just about ready to break into tears already. It was dead silent except for the quiet sound of hushed breathing and occasionally someone shuffling their feet or the rustling of clothes. After almost 5 minutes of sitting in the cramped space wondering what was going on, I heard something coming from the halls. At first I could barely hear it. An off-key, distorted marching band tune being whistled by someone slowly making their way into the wing we were in, complemented with impossibly loud dragging footsteps seeming like someone the size of a car and barefoot was walking down the hallway, their feet slapping sickly against the cheap linoleum tile floors. It sounded like they'd just made it around the corner, and were getting closer to our classroom. As it neared the door, the footsteps slowed, then stopped, yet the whistling just got louder. It wasn't just me hearing things, as all the other kids looked like they were just about ready to shit their pants, and I probably did too. We all began to tense up even more as the door handle rattled. It was hardly visible at first, but then it got so violent it caused the entire door to rattle, the floors to shake, and the walls to vibrate, like it was an earthquake. The whistling was now much louder, almost painfully loud. Kids were sobbing as desks and chairs tipped over and books fell to the ground. Splits and cracks began to form in the wood of the door, spreading from the handle. I could hear the handle screws shoot across the room one by one. Then, the deadbolt snapped, and all but one hinge clattered to the ground. A crack got so big it almost split the door in half. Someone screamed in fear. The door looked just about ready to completely shatter. Then, I made the mistake of peeking out around the desk to look through the classroom window, giving me a perfect view of what I can only describe as a horrendous creature only found in nightmares. The thing at our door, it was at least 8 feet tall and a pale blue like the color of a stormy ocean. Its skin was puffy, and covered in infected sores and gangrene. Its stomach was inflated like a balloon, as if it was malnourished and starved. One of its arms was withered and looked just about ready to fall off, the skin shriveled like it was burnt or rotten. Yet the other arm was the opposite. It was the one locked onto the door handle, and it was bulging with cartoonishly large muscles, so inflated in size the skin was stretched and taut to the point it looked ready to pop. The 3 massive fingers stuck haphazardly onto the hand were as thick an adult's arm, and it would have been comical seeing such a massive appendage clinging to the tiny handle had it not been for the situation. The head, or rather absence of a head, was the most horrifying thing. Its neck was cut off at the base, the stump was dripping blood and pus, and the whistling must have come from the inflamed, swollen remains of the windpipe, sticking out just barely above the rest of the neck and spewing mucus like a grotesque fountain. I ran over to the door and began to shove desks up against it, despite the teacher begging for me to come back and to continue to hide, but I knew we would all die if that thing made it in. I looked out the window once I had done all I could to block the door, and I think some other kids looked, judging by the occasional shrieks of fear. Eventually, after realizing it couldn't make it in, it lost interest and walked off, revealing its shriveled legs abnormally short for the rest of it, with skin sticking right to bone, the slow walk, misplacing its feet like a child who just realized they could stand on just 2 feet. Its larger arm dragged on the ground behind it. It was a wonder the legs didn't just snap under the immense weight of whatever it was. I stood there frozen, staring out into the empty hallway. After a few more minutes of waiting, the voice came back over the speakers, telling us that it was safe to leave the building. We weren't allowed to so much as speak about the incident from then on. Anyone who even mentioned it would be immediately sent to the principal. Teachers often would be very anxious on the anniversary of when that happened, to the point they would rarely let students go into the halls. Even our parents were dead silent when it came to that lockdown. In fact, every adult seemed to know something we didn't. I don't know if anyone else saw it besides my class, but I still have nightmares of that thing, and I still have no clue what the hell that thing was, or what it would have done had it gotten into our room that day. Lockdowns scare me. Lockdowns are freaky. Though most of the people in my class took it as a joke. When a lockdown extends past 5 minutes, however, people start speculating the worse. We would all jump when the automated announcement played. I can still remember it, burned into my memory from that day. Lockdown, lockdown. Lock the doors, stay away from the windows. Lockdown, lockdown. The announcements would say before a series of beeps and then silence. Only to start up again a minute later. I don't know what we expected. People messaged their friends from all over the school and spread the message to the people beside them. Gunman? No. No gunshots. Not yet. Drug bust? Nothing new. But they don't lock down the school for that. Did someone bring a weapon? Perhaps, but if we aren't hearing gunshots, it can't be a gun, meaning the constable could take them on. Speculations went back and forth for a few minutes. I remember halfway through being whispered a new idea, the intercom cut out mid-sentence. A crackling noise remained for a few seconds, before silencing completely. What I heard next chills me to the bone just to remember it. First it was a scream. A cliché horror scream as if there was bloody murder. Then it cut off. There were the sounds of bones crunching, before a strange silence fell. You could hear the blood hit the tiles in the hallway. After a few seconds there was a undescribable sound. A squelching sound almost. It was pulsating though, the sound, in both volume and pitch. There was a low hum that echoed through the school, which was followed by the sound of tearing metal. The hum and squelching continued, for another 10 minutes. It was a fear I couldn't describe, shared by all that was in there that day. When it was all over, we were given a week off of school. No explanation. When we left the classroom, however, there was blood and some sort of bloodied matter everywhere. It coated the walls and lockers as though someone had attached a corpse to a powerful drill and then simply let it spin until all the parts flew off like a disc going too fast. It was the French teacher. Was being the key word. Not only that, but there were marks on the lockers like animal scratches, that tore the metal as though slicing a popkin with a sharp knife. There were no tracks to or from the scene. Not a day goes by without nightmares of what I experienced. Mostly what I heard. I wish it was a gunman. I wish it was a crazy fuck with a AR-15. I wish. I tell myself that it was a crazy man with an AR-15 and a bunch of strange sounds. If I accept that it is anything else, I am accepting that whatever it was wasn't human. I would rather not believe that. Terrifying school lockdown. Last year during the whole killer clown craze, a few clowns on Twitter threatened to come to our school at 11 a.m. and kill us. The school picked up on this, and sent out emails to parents and planned a lockdown at 10:30. Sitting in history class, I hear the familiar sound of the lockdown alarm, the teacher rushing to the windows and door, locking and closing them. To be honest, I wasn't that worried. I thought that it was just another blank thread online, and nothing would happen, and my day would go back to normal, but there is still an excitement to a lockdown. After 40 minutes of silence, sitting on the cold floor in the corner of the room, the emergency green flashing light turned off, and the air conditioning slowly fell silent, and the hallway lights switched off. The school had cut the power. Why though? At this point, me and my classmates were staring at each other. We all knew that something real was going on. After 10 minutes or so, we could all hear a faint banging noise from down the corridor, shortly followed by heavy and fast footsteps. Someone was running down the hallway. They started banging on the lockers and screamed, "I'll kill you all. Just die." At this point, a few girls started quietly crying. Then, the most terrifying thing ever happened. One of the men, dressed as a clown, ran up to my class door, banging and screaming. Multiple people were crying now. One of my friends whispered to me, "We're all going to die." I started crying too. The man swiftly moved away from our door, and his scream slowly faded down the corridor. After another 2 hours, the principal came on the loudspeaker, surprisingly explaining everything. He said that just after 11, 2 men walked into the school, one holding a kitchen knife and a camera. They ran around the school, threatening to kill students, and once police raided the school, only caught one. No one was hurt. The school got over 20 buses to take the younger kids home, and the kids 9th grade and over, like me, were told to walk home in groups, and call the cops if we saw anything suspicious. I had a hard week at school, thinking that the second man would return with a gun or something, but nothing happened. This nonetheless, will be scarred into my mind forever. The second one, as far as I know, has not yet been caught, but at this point, I feel like they are not looking for him. As it's been over a year, but the thought of him still planning an attack on the school has made me a lot more cautious when walking to school. Since then, the school has hired a few on-campus police officers and have installed some auto-locking features on doors and windows. When the lockdown alarm goes off, this had made me feel a little bit better in school, but this just isn't something that you can forget about. It stays around forever.